Hey guys, Tarke here. It's time for my patch notes summary and review. If you've never watched one of my patch notes summary and reviews before, basically the way it works is I've gone through everything. I've picked out key things that stood out to me. I'm not going to mention every single thing that got buffed. I'm going to mention every single thing that got nerfed. I will skip over a lot of things. These are just the things that I think you should be aware of and my opinions on them. I'll also show you some of the really exciting new notables on the passive skill tree and leave a link to something you can use to update your skill tree. Okay, so things that I was surprised by. No spell slinger nerfs, no nerfs to bone offering, block recovery in general. The crit multi nerf, it did actually go through, so ignore that. Buffing trap damage effectiveness, there'll be a mini trap rant towards the end of this video, so look forward to that. And most importantly, carpets in Solaris Temple tile set now align with doors. The change has finally happened. So what's the OP? Enduring Cry. So the new Enduring Cry does a couple of things, but the main thing that's worth noting, now calls you to generate 120 life over 1 second at level 1, up to 1,976 at level 20. So at level 21 Enduring Cry will push this even further. Yeah, Enduring Cry is going to be very good. This is going to be more healing than you're going to get from your flasks. And if you're playing a build near the Warcry part of the tree, you can get Warcry effects, Warcry duration, and yeah. Stuff is good. So increased Warcry buff effects. So stacking any Warcry increased Warcry buff effect will stack that. You can then stack duration on it. You'll have crazy good uptime. Enduring Cry is going to be very good. Use it in your builds. It'll be very, very strong. Armageddon Brand. Armageddon Brand got a lot of numbers changing. The main thing which I was surprised by is up to 250 ailment from 180, gaining 70 just burst there, and a bunch of base damage. Armageddon Brand Ignite could be legit. I'm still not sold on the brand playstyle, but I think Armageddon Brand could be potentially pretty sexy. Penance Brand could also be pretty interesting with ailments, depending on how that turns out. But I do think that Armageddon Brand Ignite could definitely be something to look out for. Fireball. Fireball now has an added damage effectiveness of 240%, which is absolutely ridiculous. I think it's the highest, pretty much, of any of the baseline skills. The gem got removed, or it got reworked into something else. The AoE as it travels got baked into the core skill. So this is a huge buff for Ignite, and it's a huge buff for just like hit-based. This is really strong. And the new Rolling Flames duel is very interesting. So Rolling Flames now gives 30 to 50% chance to Scorch. Scorch strips all LE resistances. Very powerful. Very, very powerful. And super flexible. You could shove this in a Spellslinger build. You could just go like Shrouded Lightless, get just all sorts of flat damage stacking all over the place. You could go Mind over Matter, Archmage, use Rolling Flames, you know, Shrouded Lightness, Unleash. I don't know. Could be very strong. Could be very, very strong. Ice Crash. Ice Crash now has 100% conversion. The damage effectiveness got buffed pretty significantly, up to 280 from 240 at max level. The second stages got nerfed a little bit, but the damage effectiveness change is pretty huge. And the full conversion makes it much easier early on. It's not the biggest deal, but it makes them much more straightforward to build, so worth mentioning. Frostbolt. Frostbolt also got the random, let's just add some damage effectiveness for no reason. Frostbolt Iceover has already been a really good starter build, scales really well into the end game. It's just a very good build, and it just got a lot better. So if your build uses Frostbolt in any way, good. Freezing Pulse also saw a buff. I think that went from 150 to 200, but Frostbolt is just better, so use Frostbolt instead. Perforate. I think Perforate's going to be one of the sleeper melee skills. I think Perforate is going to be incredibly strong. Would highly recommend trying it. A lot of people tried Perforate when it first came out and kind of dismissed it. Perforate currently can do very silly burst damage. And while people look at this and go, oh, but the numbers aren't that good, Tarky, like it lost effectiveness, sure, it gained an add fizz, but that kind of cancels each other out. And it's 75 from 65. This seems like a terrible nerf. They've increased the amount of spikes They've made it feel a lot more consistent. They've improved the targeting AI of it. Perforate will feel a lot better to clear with and a lot better to single target with. Try Perforate. I think it'll be really solid. Shockwave support. Shockwave support just looks kind of dumb. So it now gains additional uses of gem levels up to 4. So it's kind of like your banking charges, kind of like Seal. And it gained 50% damage effectiveness. Oh, sorry, 50% of base damage scaling. So yeah, it gained a lot of scaling and it gained charges. So Shockwave is going to be Pog. Dusk Blight. These are a pair of Prophecy upgraded boots. This seems very interesting to me. So it used to give level 15 added chaos. Now it triggers Stalking Pustule on kill. Don't know what that is. Sounds dirty. And adds 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 chaos damage to spells and attacks during any flask effect. Anything that stacks flat chaos damage is very strong in poison builds. Could be a very easy addition to any like Poison Scourger I build or Poison Blade Vortex. Poison Blade Vortex is a very solid league starter. This will be a pretty slept-on item because it's, you know, going to go under the radar. It's nothing too exciting. This could be really good though. Kong Ming's Stratagem. This was already a very strong shield. It gives a bunch of spell damage reduction, like spell damage taken reduction rather, against blinded enemies. A lot of people used to use these on trappers and miners for bossing on. It's now got 30 to 50 increased fire damage with hit now against blinded enemies from 30, so it's gained 2% increased damage. And it now has up to 300% increased energy shield from 120. So this is a huge buff. And they've also buffed the Fog of War, which is like a triggered blind cloud when a trap is triggered. So it's got a large radius and a cooldown of 1 from 3. So this is really nice. Definitely worth thinking about if you're playing a trapper, maybe not on a sab, and you want the blind effects. This could be a way to get it. Red Blade Banner. This, I think, is a hypothetical OP item. This is for the Slam Boys. No longer grants attack damage leeches life against stronger enemies. Now causes Warcries to have infinite power. If you don't know what power is, Warcries are more effective based on the nearby enemies. So the more enemies that are around you, also there'll be some like new Warcry cluster jewel stuff. You might be able to scale some very silly stuff. As previously mentioned, Enduring Cry looks kind of good. Anything which makes Warcries better could be very sexy. Look into this. This could be silly. Reverberation Rod and Amplification Rod. Amplification Rod, I would definitely recommend looking into getting early in the league. It's basically a 7-link item now, and it'll be very cheap early until people realize how much got buffed. So it now gives +2 to socketed gems, so it gives like a mini in power. So it gives +2. It gives level 10 Spell Echo, level 10 Control Destruction, and level 10 Intensify. So it's like a 6-link with +2 with like a mini in power, so it's like maybe a 6.5, kind of a scuffed 7-link. Very strong early league, really good for leveling characters, really strong. Whispering Ice, they've just casually buffed the damage effectiveness by 15%. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but that's a fairly substantial DPS increase, so Whispering Ice could be good. Zana can now send you on a mission to find and activate a Legion Monolith. Zana missions are better now. Nice. Now we're into the lol part of the notes. These are the things which seemed weird to me or make me kind of annoyed. So, Arctic Breath, which has been renamed to Creeping Frost or Creeping whatever. They've increased the scaling. Now deals up to 1,391.2 cold damage per second from 1,383. I always find these changes really bizarre. The good old 8-dot buff. Hit-based Creeping Frost might be a thing now. Like, it might be legit, but I find this stuff really weird. They did something similar with, like, Cold Snap or Vortex a couple of leagues ago. They're like, oh, change it by 10. Hit-based might be legit, but this makes me laugh. Okay, Ice Trap. Ice Trap, Lightning Trap, Lightning Spire Trap. People expect me to talk about this a lot, and I'm going to talk about this a lot for the wrong reasons. So, Ice Trap now has an added damage effectiveness of 200% from 150. Lightning Trap now has an added damage effectiveness of 170 from 135. Lightning Spire Trap now has an added damage effectiveness of 60 from 70. So they nerfed Lightning Spire Trap a little bit. Traps don't need damage buffs. If you want people to play traps, remove the arming time, increase their throwing speed. Traps do damage. Traps, people don't like them because they feel slower than mines. You made mines really fast, people played mines. Traps do enough damage. I was planning out on maybe playing a Trapper build this league. The Lightning Trap version got buffed. Great, it will do more damage. The problem it has is survivability. Making the builds feel more mobile will make them feel much more survivable. That's not the way to fix it. Also worth mentioning, they have made a change to Hasty Reconstruction. It used to be over here. It's now connected onto the Spell Crit wheel, so it's a 1 less travel point, which is nice. And the final node also gives you skills which throw traps have +1 cooldown use. So really nice going for Flamethrower Trap, Lightning Spire Trap. Sadly did see a slight nerf. Flamethrower Trap is really solid though. So yeah, always happy to see trap buffs, but this isn't the way to buff traps, GGG. Cluster Jewels. This was just one of the things. They made a long list of all the Cluster Jewels that changed, and in the end they just added "and others." I found it mildly amusing. I'm not going to go through all the Cluster Jewels. This early POB has that stuff in there. It's too much to go through. We'll save that for Carve with the 8-hour video. Right, Arborix. This is one of the weirdest unique reworks I have ever seen. So, no longer causes you to gain iron reflexes for 8 seconds every 16 seconds. No longer causes you to deal 30% more damage with arrow hits at close range while you have iron reflexes, or grant increased attack, cast movement speed, or fast shot while you don't. No longer grants increased evasion rating, causing bows attacks to fire 2 additional arrows. Instead, so this is what it does do, it gives you iron reflexes all the time, as well as a level 30 dash. And you're like, yo, level 30 dash, that sounds pretty good. If you've cast dash recently, you get 160% increased evasion rating and 30% increased movement speed. Damn, this sounds so good. Level 30 dash and 30% movement speed? Sign me up, chief. If you haven't cast dash recently, it instead grants 30% increased attack speed and causes bow attacks to fire 2 additional arrows. Travel skills other than dash are disabled while this is equipped. So the reason you used to use this bow is it had like a chin soul effect of 30% more damage and it gave you +2 arrows. Now, it doesn't if you've used a movement skill. And you only get the movement speed buff if you've used dash recently. It would be a lot more like, I don't like this design. It would at least make more sense if it's like you get these crazy dashes and if you haven't dashed you get a movement speed steroid, but yeah, it's really jank. They basically killed the bow. Gloomfang. This is, I can actually understand this change, but I'm going to put it in here anyway. No longer causes projectiles gain 15 to 20 of non-chaos damage as extra chaos damage per chain. Now cause projectiles that have chain to gain up to 35 non-chaos chaos, and that's just once, so it doesn't stack up. So you're like, oh, I equip this, 35% increased damage, or 35 non-chaos chaos, yay. Now grants 30-40 increased projectile speed. This is going to be good for actual like chain bow builds and stuff, but this is going to like absolutely destroy the whole magma orb stuff. So really bad for magma orb. Could be good for bows, could maybe be good for the new Molten Strike support gem, but they killed its identity with being with Magma Orb, so that's kind of weird. But, oh well. This I found particularly amusing. This is one of the bug fixes. Fixed a bug where Rigwald's Curse didn't give added critical strike chance to offhand attacks while you had Hollow Palm technique allocated. So anyone who played a crit Hollow Palm build in Delirium, every other attack couldn't crit. So if you play in that build, it got buffed quite substantially. But I find that pretty amusing. So here are some of the nerfs that I think nerfs, but fair nerfs. Vol Molten Shell. So now grants 25 additional armor at level 1 from 60. Now grants 429 at 20 from 1000. So pretty substantial flat armor nerfs. Now grants 20% more up to 29% more. So that's pretty strong. Now causes 30% of damage taken from hits if you take them the buff for your life, up to 35 from 80 at all. So, yeah, this is a bit of a yikes. Now, I'm seeing a scenario where you use Molten Shell for the reduction and not so much Vol Molten Shell. And the main reason you use Vol Molten Shell now is for the more armor scaling and for the longer duration. But yeah, normal Molten Shell will have bigger absorbs for most people now. Yeah. And now reflects 3% of damage taken from fire, was depleted from 100 up to 9,000 from 3,000. So it does more damage now and is removed by any other guard skill. Cool. Fevered Mind. They've nerfed Fevered Mind. It's a pretty substantial nerf, but I actually really like this change. This is an interesting way of changing it. So it no longer increases the mana cost of skills by 50%, no longer gives the 40% increased spell damage, now causes notable passive skills in radius to be transformed to instead grant 10% increased mana cost and 20% increased spell damage. Very interesting. It's going to be curious working out what the best place to put this is. You'll get a lot more power out of one individual Fevered Mind, but it's limited to one, right? So if you get the correct placement, this could be as good as like 1.5 of the old ones. And the fact that you can put it in somewhere in your build where there's nothing good for you and then make it good for you is interesting, especially with the way that cluster jewels work. Like, for example, so this is my league star, so this is a cremation build. I'm routing through parts 3 which don't necessarily give me all that much. So, for example, it could be insane here. So here you'd hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notables that you could hit just there in Witch. Pretty cool. Pretty good, obviously, in Shadow as well. It could be okay there, not as great, but there'll be some interesting places to put it. You just gotta work out where you are. I like having that flexibility. Could also be pretty nice down in Ranger. Maybe if you're doing like a Trickster version, you could be like, come down, grab Acro, Phase Acro, convert a bunch of stuff in Trickster. Also worth mentioning over here now, we have increased the mana cost 15% just on the tree. So you've got 50% increase on the tree. They've reworked some of the items. Fevered Mind's a bit more interesting. Yeah, it's like overall, it's a nerf, but at least it's an interesting nerf. So I support it. Savior. Okay, so this one, I didn't realize the nerf at first. Someone had to be like, ew, Tarke, read that again. So, strike skills used by Mirage Saviors cannot hit additional targets. So, Savior's going to be really good for single targets still, but for map clear, yeah, that's a yikes. But, I mean, you shouldn't need Savior for map clear, so you should be fine. You should be fine. Yeah. And those are basically all these standout changes. So, again, these aren't all the buffs, these aren't all the nerfs, these are just the ones that really stood out to me. I'll now just go through and talk about nodes that seem very interesting, very build-defining on the passive skill tree. So we'll start off by talking about the Warcry stuff, because I think there'll be a lot of focus on Warcries at the moment. So the main Warcry classes that really interest me. Escalation. Increase Warcry speed. Again, they've got a base of 0.8, so you want to stack as much Warcry speed as possible. Hopefully you get it to a point where you don't actually need the instant Warcries. The plan for my build is to use both Enduring Cry for sustain and Infernal Cry for covering enemies in ash and the nice corpse explosions alongside my cremation. So if I can get enough increased speed that I don't need this node, I'd much rather it. If I can't, then I take this node and then I just have Enduring Cry on left click. And yeah, I just face roll everything with crazy life sustain. Should feel really good. Natural Authority. Enemies taunted by your Warcries take 5% increased damage. Warcries debilitate enemies. Debilitated enemies slow them by 20. And they deal 10% less damage. Very strong. There's Rage. You lose Rage slower here. You lose Rage slower. Maximum Rage. Reduce skill effect duration. Very strong. Good for Earthquake. Dynamo is ridiculous. And it's right next to Agnostic. Recover 20% of mana over 1 second when you use a guard skill. Guard skills have 25% increased duration, 20% increased maximum mana. And the minor nodes are guard skills have increased duration 8%, 10% mana, guard skills 20% increased cooldown recovery. If you're playing any minor Vamata build, you just take all 3 points, and you're getting 40% guard skill duration, 20% cooldown, and a shit ton recovery. It's also a really cheap anoint as well. It's really, really good. Really, really good. People take me to look at the blind thingy. Silent steps. Oh, they removed the diminishing returns. The damage reduction on that. That's a yikes. Yeah, they screwed that up a little bit. We've got max res on anointed flesh now. Look at Sabo. Uh-oh. Okay, I will look at it in a bit, chat. Oh god, this is scary. So +1 to max res and reduced ailment duration on you and reduced effect of non-damaging ailments on you. Now, at first, this didn't seem that great to me. Like, obviously, the max res seemed great, but the reduced effect, I was like, why do you want to reduce effect when you can just become immune? And I was talking to Noogie, and Noogie's like, well, actually, Tarke, there are lots of items that give you effects based on, like, being shocked or being ignited. So, that would be really cool if you're using a, like, self-ailment item. So you purposely shock yourself, but then you make that shock do very little. So that's very interesting. Opens up a lot of capabilities. Again, stuff like chill, stuff with ignite. Very cool. Born in the Shadows. Can't be blind. 2% reduced damage taken. 30% increased. 20. Oh, they removed the aura? That's a Wait, what? It's just blind on hit? GGG. That's a really... This isn't how you get people to play traps. Okay. Sure. Why not? Why not, GGG? That's fine. No witnesses. Chance getting released. That's really fucking annoyed me. There's a really cool wheel down here. So projectiles pierce additional target. Projectiles deal increased damage to each enemy pierced. Projectiles pierce 2. Projectiles have a 10% chance for additional projectile when forking. Projectiles have 50% chance. That's 60% chance for additional projectile when you fork. Really strong. And this one, reduced fork angle. Reduced fork angle with 60% chance for additional projectile when forking. Really strong for like shattering steel. And this one is increased fork angle. This could be very strong for like shotgunning against walls. So it makes them like spread out further. So like in Delve, this could be really strong with shotgunning abilities. But if you're playing shattering steel, these points are insane. And these give increased chain range. Increased damage, increased chain range. Projectiles deal 20% increased damage for each time they have chained. So again, you know, there's some interesting stuff going on with chaining. And if the art looks weird, it's just this like early POB has scuffed artwork. Otherwise, we've got Wind Dancer on the tree here. We've got Supreme Ego here. Supreme Ego, worth noting if you're doing a Mind Over Matter build. Could be very strong with Essence Worm, getting that 50% more effect of your auras on you. That will also affect like your Vol Haste, Vol Grace, stuff like that. Eternal Youth, Agnostic. Here we have Imbalanced Guard, which is going to be very strong. Crimson Dance is the same place, got moved down. Iron Grip got moved over here. This is the Impale cluster. That's Iron Reflexes still. And... oh, here's Unwavering Stance. Unwavering Stance is in a bit of an odd spot. It gets hit by this Timeless Jewel, which is kind of cool. Also, one thing worth noting, because there are so many extra keynodes about, you can use Divine Flesh or Conversion Timeless Jewels here, but less travel points now that Perfect Agony is on the same point there. Also put one there. So there'll be lots of, like, using a 3-point jewel somewhere to convert something else. So that'll be very interesting. Overall takeaway and summary of the patch notes. Some of these are really weird. The Sab thing, maybe that's a bug, but if that's an actual legit Sab nerf, why? Like, honestly, the hell? That's just ruined the patch for me. But otherwise, I support everything. that really has soured my opinion. Before I saw that, I'd have said amazing patch notes overall. Couple of weird things. Don't like what they've done with some of the uniques in particular. But, yes. Very bizarre. Anyway, what was the main thing that stood out for you? What are you most excited by? What are you most disappointed by? What is your League Start build now that you've seen the new skill tree? I'm Tarke. Have a good day. Can't believe they somehow made traps worse, by the way. Bye-bye.